Anybody want to hear a dad joke? Yes. It's funny. It's funny. Tyler just saying about what he's kind of been opposed to, and in that talking about offering and I've always been, as you study and listen to other pastors, speakers, teachers, and you see so many, it's like what you do is you start out with a joke and just get people warmed up. And I'm like, that's dumb, you know? Like, I don't know. Maybe it's just because the jokes are dumb. I don't know. But anyway, I've always been like, there's no way I'm getting up there and just telling a joke just to like get people warmed up, like we're warming up a crowd or something, But anyway, here goes. So, dad jokes, oh man. Here's one. I got a new pen that can write underwater. It can write other words too. When does a joke become a dad joke? When it becomes apparent. What? What? Ah? Okay. So, I actually, for a reason, have said these dad jokes and even looked up and just looking up why do dads tell dad jokes? What's the point, or why does it happen? And there's actually a lot of like study and some research. I mean, if it's not like scientific research, I guess, but a lot of research into like dads telling jokes and really like with psychology and those kind of things that actually they say that dads like telling these jokes, and even ones that are not good or just these silly puns, actually can be very good for kids and children as they're growing up. One of the reasons, because it helps them to deal with feeling ashamed of their dad. Things like that. One of the things it said, helping children learn how to deal with embarrassment is no laughing matter. Getting better at this is very important, a very important part of learning how to regulate emotions and develop resilience. Modeling the use of humor also has benefits. Jokes can be a useful coping strategy during awkward situations, like when your dad's telling a dad joke. For instance, after someone says something awkward or to make someone laugh who has become upset. So there's study, there's research, there's articles, there's all these things, and I've always kind of wondered, because my kids, have been ashamed and like hung their heads low because I've said a dad joke out in public, even at the house. It's just us, and sitting on the couch, and I say something, and I don't know, whatever, this funny quip or pun, having to do with what somebody said, and they're just like, what? It's what dads do. It's what we do. I'm not ashamed of it. You shouldn't be ashamed of it. Deal with it, Or for me, it's like one of these things that, like, if you say something and it reminds me of a movie, I'm probably going to quote at least a few lines of the movie. The kids are like, is that cricket dead? Say, he's not dead. He's only mostly dead. What do you do if he's all dead? You go through his pockets and you look for spare change. Okay, so, or you say a word and it reminds me of a song, or even when I say a word and it reminds me of a song, and then I just bust out in a song. Tori's nodding her head really loud, or really loud. It was loud to me. Really fast, hard, whatever. But it's just the other morning. We have some birds making a nest like right under our little porch, and made this giant nest. And there's, we hear the little tweets, the little baby birds, and Ansley was downstairs with me, and she was like, are those birds? Can you see them? And I opened the door, and I looked out, and I said, there's 3 little birds on my doorstep. So I had to just bust out in song, right? They're singing sweet melodies. Okay, I'm not going to remember it now. I'm all messed up, but the song goes, rise up this morning, smiled with the rising sun, 3 little birds by my doorstep, singing sweet songs and melodies pure and true, saying, this is my message to you, right? So I just do it. It just happens. And my kids are just like walking away, And it's just what I do. In Romans, Paul is, of course, writing to the church in Rome, and he gets to this point where he says, I'm not ashamed of the gospel of Christ. And just before that, in verses 14 and 15, he says, I am a debtor both to Greeks and to barbarians, both to wise and unwise. So as much as is in me, I am ready to preach the gospel to you who are in Rome also. He's like, I haven't been there. I've been detained. There's been all this stuff going on. But I want to come to you. And he's like, to Greeks and to barbarians, that meaning really, when you look into that just those that different language, that you don't know their culture, that are outside of what you know. He's like, I've been everywhere, man. And I've been everywhere. Okay, so oh gosh. Okay. He says, with the Greeks, and also with those that I've traveled, that I didn't even know their culture and how they lived in, or even their language. And he's like, I've been wanting to come to you, and I'm not ashamed to preach. Romans 1, verse 16, it says, for I am not ashamed of the gospel of Christ, for it is the power of God to salvation for everyone who believes, for the Jew first and also for the Greek. This word, ashamed, is feeling, of course, shame or guilt or remorse because of something that you've done. So Paul here is saying, listen, you guys. This is Rome. This Rome, and Rome is powerful. Right? The Greeks had their philosophy, but Rome had its power, its strength. And they believed, they felt that they were strong, that they had like what they needed. It's like, come at us, come at me, bro, And they're like, we're powerful. What Paul's saying is like, listen, you may feel Like you have this power, this strength, but it's a feeble strength when it's our strength, when it's our power. He says, actually, I'm not ashamed to come in and declare and to speak, to preach. I'm not afraid to say anything. He's like, I'm not afraid to say my dad jokes. See, because I remember a time, it's like this, there's always an awkward phase in everything. When your kids are real little, they really love the dad jokes. And then they start to like understand things, and get smart. And then all of a sudden the dad jokes are just kind of like, oh, no, I really understand things now. And I'm struggling because this really actually isn't a good joke. It's really just, it doesn't make sense. I don't get it. This is awkward phase. And so he's like, listen, there's no awkwardness here. I'm not ashamed. And with me, with my kids, and when they got to that place and they're starting to like understand now and say something about my dad jokes, And I was just like, oh, okay, I guess my jokes aren't funny anymore. Or maybe never were. I don't know. Is it chicken or egg, Is it because my kids are smart now? Or is it because the jokes were good? I don't know. And I got this feeling of like, man, of shame. Like, my kids don't like my jokes. Maybe I shouldn't tell these jokes. Maybe I shouldn't bust out in a song whenever I hear a word and it reminds me of a song or a movie quote because my kids like act like they're embarrassed and it makes me feel like I'm embarrassed, and then maybe I just shouldn't do this. And that's what happens whenever there's this awkward moment, right? And in this story here that we're reading, there's going to be awkward moments. And much more than awkward moments, but definitely awkward moments where Paul is preaching or speaking and there's people coming against him or laughing at him, not at his joke, but at him as a person because of what he's preaching, what he's speaking. But he says, listen, I want to tell you this. So I will come to Rome. I'll come to a place that believes it has this power. And I am not going to be ashamed. I'm not ashamed of the gospel of Christ. For, the word for, it says, in the meaning is that some previous declaration is explained or it takes on an explicative force. So he's saying, I love this because he says, I'm not going to be ashamed of the gospel of Christ. And I'm going to tell you why, getting excited about what I'm going to do, because what I'm going to explain next actually tells you why I do what I do. Why I'm not ashamed. I'm not ashamed of the gospel of Christ because it's the power of God to salvation. Because the gospel of Christ is the power, it's the dunamis. It's the strength and power of God at work. It's not our power. It's not something that he's like, man, Rome, cool. You're pretty strong. But guess what? Your power doesn't have power unto salvation. Your power can last for a little while. It can last right now for this moment. Maybe you got some strength, but your power doesn't save you for eternity. But guess what? I'm not ashamed to tell you that the gospel of Christ is the power. It's the power, the dunamis, the strength, the power, the ability, inherent power residing in a thing by virtue of its nature. I love the dunamis. The gospel of Christ is the power that resides by virtue of just God's nature. It's in him. It's not something that he's created. It's not something that he's worked up like Rome has worked up this power and done all these things to make itself powerful. But God, just by his sheer virtue of who he is, has this dunamis, this power, this strength. It's inherent in him. His ability isn't something that he's acquired. He just has it. His power. It's his power and his ability, his strength. Of him for us unto salvation. Some of the ancient philosophers actually in their writings called Rome a cesspool of iniquity and a filthy sewer into which the dregs of the empire flood. They called this place, it felt like it was powerful. It had this strength and this power, Rome did, but it had just gathered these people, and it was a cesspool. It was like filthy sewage. It was a mess. But Paul, here when he's saying this, I just can imagine him. He's just like, he knows what it's like. He knows what it's going to be when he walks in there, but that he's just like, listen to me, I'm excited. I'm excited. I'm ready, and I'm not ashamed. I'm not ashamed of the gospel of Christ to speak these words. Because it's the power of God unto salvation, which is a power that lasts beyond all time. A salvation that takes us beyond this time that we're in the future that we may see on this world, past that, all the way into the time when we're with him into eternity. That's the kind of power he says that I'm talking about. That's what's needed here. He says, I'm ready to walk into a cesspool and start shouting from the rooftops about God. Because it's more powerful than any other thing that this world could comprehend. It's the dunamis of God. And he he says, everybody that believes. If you believe, what's the caveat or the, what's the catch? It's not really a catch. It's just a question that God asks is like, will you believe? Because in order for this to work, you have to believe that I am who I am. Not that he can't do it, but will you allow me to do it? Do you believe that I can do it where you'll place yourself in my hands and allow me to do this work in you instead of doing it on your own? Will you let me do this? This is for all those that believe. It's not that hard of a thing to do, but it is a hard thing to do. It's one of those conundrums. It doesn't make you do 5 million push-ups and then there's salvation. Or you have to do everything perfectly and somehow it's on you, because in any of those situations, anything that he could do or say like, well, if you do it this way, or if you do it that way, or if you're just such, you're a perfect person, or you didn't do anything bad in your life, or any of that stuff, then all of a sudden it rests on us. This entrance in or being brought into salvation, but no. So it's not any of those things that would be hard for us to do. But he said, will you believe? Will you put your trust in me instead of putting your trust in yourself or someone else? Will you believe me, who I am, what I've done, this gospel of Christ, what Christ has done? And in verse 17, Romans 1:17, for in it is the righteousness of God revealed from faith to faith. As it is written, the just shall live by faith. In it, the righteousness of God. It doesn't say the righteousness that we conjure up, the righteousness that we acquire somehow by some of our doing. It says, listen, in this, the gospel of Christ, that is the power, the ability, the strength of God for salvation, for all, for everyone who believes. In that gospel, that power, it resides. The righteousness of God is there, and it's revealed in that. It's his righteousness, not ours, his. It says, as it is written, the just shall live by faith. And this is taking from the Old Testament and Habakkuk 2. And I just want to read from verse 1 to 4. Such a good chapter and handful of verses. It says, I will stand my watch and set myself on the rampart and watch to see what he will say to me. I mean, I'll stay awake I'll keep my eyes open and watch for God and know where He is and where He's going and what He's doing. I'll set myself up in a place, not hide, not dig my feet in or go behind the wall to make sure I'm protected, but I'll set myself up in this place that I can see as far as I possibly can with my natural eyes and my mind and my heart as much as I possibly can. I'll set myself in this place where I can see and watch. And I'll watch to see what He'll say to me and what I will answer when I'm corrected. Then the Lord answered me and said, write the vision and make it plain on tablets that he may run who reads it. For the vision is yet for an appointed time, but at the end it will speak and it won't lie. Though it tarries, wait for it, because it will surely come. It will not tarry. Though it seems like it takes a long time, it'll be in the right time. In verse 4, behold the proud. Look out. Watch out for the proud. Keep your eye out for pride. His soul is not upright in him, but the just shall live by his faith. And this is, behold those like Rome that think they're so powerful, that are proud, think they've got something. But the just, or those that are justified, they will live by faith, by trusting God, by trusting who He is, by believing what He's done, by standing firm in their faith, not backing down, not being ashamed. Will we have that kind of faith? It says, back in 17, from faith to faith. It says, for in it the righteousness of God is revealed from faith to faith, as it is written, the just shall live by faith. And it's an interesting thing, from faith to faith. And what exactly does that mean? And in researching, trying to figure out, it seems that it's just saying, by having this faith that you have and it being from the first to the last, a continuous faith all the way through. You start with faith, you end with faith. Trying to sustain and keep that place, that trust, that believing, that hope in who God is and what He's done. In verse 18 it says, For the wrath of God is revealed from heaven against all ungodliness and unrighteousness of men who suppress the truth in unrighteousness. And he goes on to just say so much about unrighteousness and what I'll say we, I mean, he was talking about the people then, but what we can do in unrighteousness to suppress the truth. For the wrath of God is revealed from heaven against all ungodliness and unrighteousness of men who suppress the truth in unrighteousness. And of course he goes, he's talking about all kinds of unrighteousness. But I just, in reading that, I'm thinking, wow, he just started up here by saying, I am not ashamed. I'm not ashamed of the gospel because it's the power, it's the ability and the strength of God. It's for our salvation, for all that believe. So I'm not ashamed. But then he says, for the wrath of God is revealed from heaven against all ungodliness and unrighteousness of men who suppress the truth. And that hit me hard. It's like, I don't feel like I'm doing a bunch of bad stuff, and I don't feel like so unrighteous, even though I'm not righteous myself. But it's God's righteousness in us and through us and on us and around us. But I think, oh my, who suppressed the truth. I think, God, have I in any way suppressed the truth? Have I suppressed the truth or held that truth of who you are back in any way? Either because I didn't feel like I could do it, or because I was ashamed of doing it, I was afraid of what people may think, or whatever it is. God, is there any way that I've suppressed or held back the truth? He has the ability, the power. He'll do whatever. But in our lives, have we held him back from moving in us, moving through us? As Paul says, the wrath of God is revealed from heaven against the suppressing of truth. Now we have to look at this, the wrath of God. You have those that are just like, yes, God's an angry, vengeful God, and that is not what it's talking about. This wrath of God is just the mere fact that his righteousness opposes anything that goes against who he is. It's like the strongest, it's not even like that. How do you use any kind of natural thing to compare to God? But you ever try to put two magnets together that are the wrong way, And they will not go together. They push apart from each other. You have these thoughts of, there's a little good and bad. There's a little bad and good. There's whatever. No. When we talk about this wrath of God, there's not any bad in him. There's not any evil or wrong or untruth in him. It's just truth. It's just his power, his strength. It's just his righteousness, his holiness. And whatever goes against that is directly opposed and comes against that righteousness and that holiness. So something must be done about it. As Paul says, again, I'm going to say it one more time. He says, I'm not ashamed. Dad, don't be ashamed of your dad joke. Let it fly. Don't be ashamed of who you are. And also don't be ashamed. Can we not be ashamed of who God is? Because no matter, it's not great in the world around us. But look, you got Paul, he's like, I'm coming to the cesspool, man. Here I come. I'm going to jump right in the toilet. And I'm going to preach about who God is. I'm going to preach his righteousness. I'm going to preach the gospel of Christ because it saves us from the cesspool. Because it brings us out of that darkness and the depths of that mess that you were in. And it brings us to a place of righteousness in him. Not because of what we did, not because of our power, but because of his power. That's the power of the gospel. Father God, we thank you so much. Thank you for what you've done for us. Thank you for your righteousness and your truth. God, I pray, God, let us be so unashamed, so bold, proclaiming the gospel of Christ. Let us be aware of the power that is in it to transform, to change lives, to heal, to make whole. God, that it where you are, none of that mess can be there. And we thank you. Thank you for your righteousness. Thank you for saving us, making us whole, God, as we come to trust in you, that we believe who you are, what you've done for us, that Christ died on the cross for us. It's not for us to be ashamed. It's for us to walk in your power and in your strength and in your ability. Help us to understand and realize that it's not even going to be us, that you in your power will do it when we believe. We love you. We thank you. In Jesus' name, amen.